Alright, hi, hello, and welcome to this week's devlog. In this video, we're going to talk about the player character for Planetary systems. And what you're going to see is just the first version of the character, since we are still in early development. To go through this process, I'm going to break up this video into 4 parts: concept art, 3D model, animation, and texture. Also, as a quick note, this is not a tutorial, this is just how we did it. There are some great tutorials out there, but there's always softwares updating and changing, and I have been thinking about a specific tutorial for these steps of character creation, so let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. So, the concept art. The player concept is so crucial, especially for an important character like the player character themselves. It's what the player is going to see and use the entire game, so the concept has to convey a few important things. Our player is an explorer of the universe. They are traveling through space and exploring unknown planets. What they're wearing has to reflect that. So when designing the spacesuit, I wanted it to look protective but also comfortable. The player is only ever in the suit, so it must serve all functions. They need a helmet for when they're in space that doesn't have oxygen. And we've talked about this a bit before, but we're pushing for realism in terms of physics and science, so some things had to make sense for this character. Once we were happy with the concept, I moved on to the actual 3D model itself. This is actually the third attempt at the 3D model that you're seeing now. There were a couple other attempts that acted more as practice models. At this point, I'm still fairly new to modeling. I only started a couple months ago, but I knew iterations would continue to get better. So this is now like that third version I got to, that I was much happier with. And you'll be able to see on this model, I'm adding padding and boots and a belt. These are the aspects I knew that would help portray the purpose of our player character. They're important for who they are. Now, there's maybe a bit more than just 4 steps to creating a character model. This one kind of has more like 7 steps. What's not shown here is the rig and weight painting. This character needs to be animated, and in order to do that, it must be rigged. So the next step after doing this, which I don't have footage of, but I'll just talk about it a little bit, the next step was adding in the armature, or the bones, I like to call it. And once the character had bones, I could go in and paint where the bones would affect the mesh of the character, which is like the skin. And after doing these 2 steps, you're able to move the bones to control how the player moves. So if you put a bone, in the arm, and you move that bone, you'll be able to see the arm moving on the mesh itself. So this model actually ended up being pretty clean and neat, and I thought was pretty good for our first version. So this model I ended up rigging and weight painting for. And then this leads us to the animations. Now for this first version, I only have a few animations to start. There's an idle, which is just the player standing still, breathing a bit, and then there's a walk and a crouch walk. In the final version, there will be a lot more specific animations, but this is what I started with. And looking at it now, I can see a bunch of ways that I can improve these, which is just another reason to let yourself do multiple iterations until you land on a version you're happy with. And the last thing that I did for this player character, which might be a little out of order, was to texture it. Now, there's a few different ways to texture things, so finding what pipeline worked best for me took a little bit of time. I ended up doing a UV unwrap of the character, exporting that file into Photoshop, and just painting in the colors that I wanted. After painting in Photoshop, I just swapped out the image in Blender, and it was now assigned to the model. Now that's just a super brief overview of what I did. Again, I could do a more specific tutorial on this if that's something you'd like to see, but this is kind of the general steps I took to get the textured colors onto the player character. And with that, we are at the end of this devlog. This is how we put together our first version of our player character for Planetary systems, which is super exciting. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to see more from us, you can follow our socials. They're all linked in the description of this video. And we just want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters, Renee and Giorgio. Thank you so much for letting us continue to do what we do. And we'll see you all in the next video next week. Bye-bye.